Hello everybody and welcome to another video. So if you've missed it over the past week or so, week and a bit, it's been Path of Exile 2's launch and I've been playing it and streaming it relentlessly. I have something like 70 hours, I think. I mean, technically the game's been out, what, a week? An extra weekend, and now actually as I'm recording this is Tuesday, so if you average it out, it's quite a few hours every day. I do know people who have put a lot more into it, but I hit kind of a major milestone last time I was playing, and that's that I beat the end of the campaign. So I kind of have a good sense of where the game begins, at least. I don't know whether I really am in a position to do an amazing review of the product, because as far as this genre is concerned, or at least Path of Exile 1, you know, beating just the campaign was kind of like the beginning, right? Then you get into this whole other phase, the end game phase, and that's where there's a whole load of new mechanics and things to learn. The game maybe changes a little bit. So, for example, with Path of Exile 1, I was a big fan of the game. I liked it a lot. I don't know whether I can tell you that much informed about it, because despite the fact I've put, what, 200, 300 hours into the original, I always bounced off of Path of Exile 1 as soon as I beat the campaign. I hit this end game bit, I hit mapping, and then kind of just didn't really do much with it and left. Never really had too much fun at that point, and didn't go further. One of my big curiosities with the sequel then has been how that section of the game will grip me. But I can at least compare the first to the second, and I thought this would be a good milestone, a good moment to come back to you with another video. For a while, I was thinking of doing like stream highlights every single day. I think that would have been a bit much with the Zeus Let's Play going on at the same time as well. I do have like all my footage, and I might do like an omnibus of all the big moments, so keep an eye out on that for that. But yeah, let's run through. I want to talk a little bit about how it went. So obviously it's the release of a new game. First thing really to gloss over is, you know, it was a launch period. It could have been very laggy, it could have been very buggy, it could have been very crashy. Aside from the fact that the default graphics options seemed really badly set up, so like my first few experiences in the game, it looked a bit crap. Once I like tweaked them, set up correctly, you know, the AI scaling, these were the tools that seemed a little bit rougher. The NVIDIA DLAA, deep learning anti-aliasing, and NVIDIA DLSS, the super sampling, they seemed a bit iffy. But after a bit of tweaking with those, I really didn't have many issues. I had one day where I was lagging, but I think that was just lag on my end. Yes, launch day, and I already did a video about this. There was a little bit of a delay, a couple of hours. But aside from that, the queues went in quick. I haven't had to mess about at all. There's been no faffing around. In fact, I've recently started getting into trading in the game, which has me like automatically connecting to like Korean servers and stuff. And the whole game is facilitating trades between myself and people who don't even speak the same language as me very smoothly and brilliantly. So I think it's been a great launch. 2 thumbs up from me there. I do have a friend who I know for a fact the game keeps crashing him, and I have seen other people, specifically over in the US, you know, they have to choose. There are multiple places they can connect to in the US, like you can pick Texas or you can pick New York, I think, and those have been going down a little bit, but here in the EU, it's been pretty goddamn steady. Talking about gameplay, and of course that's like the main thing really when it comes to an ARPG, this is definitely better than Path of Exile 1. If you guys are a bit iffy about the ARPG genre, as I am, you know, I've got ARPGs in my past that I've played and liked, but I've also had several experiences, Path of Exile 1, that just never quite clicked. If you've been a bit iffy with the genre, this is probably the best entry, especially modern entry, that I've played in a long time. And I think the big difference here with the gameplay versus PoE 1 is how they changed the skill gem and socketing system. In the original game, they have this really fantastic idea, or it's just like Final Fantasy VII materia. The gear you drop has slots on it, and the slots have different colors that can wield different kinds of gems, and then they can be connected with links. There's all like this cool stuff that on paper sounds really nerdy and interesting, but in reality always meant when I played Path of Exile 1, I would run through, I would get some drops, I'd finally find something with some good links for a skill I want to use, and then I'm like scared to ever upgrade or tweak or change it, because replacing any one little piece just became this massive chore, this massive hassle, where I have to mod the hell out of it to get it back to the configuration I kind of like, or else move on from cool skill synergies that I was really beginning to enjoy. In the sequel, all that's gone. They've got a new interface for your main gems and then the supports, and you can tinker and swap around to your heart's content. You can keep upgrading your gear. You never feel shackled or left behind in that way. I've played so many different iterations of my character, the witch, that I couldn't easily count off the top of my head. You know, I've tried chaos stuff with diseases and plagues. I've tried like bone attacks. I've tried bleeding things. I've tried tanky minions. I've tried offensive minions. I've tried like every type of skeleton that they have except one, the very final one. To be honest, I haven't actually played with that. And it's all been so fun and comfortable. The original game, even just getting a skill drop sometimes for me as a noob, like the specific gem that I wanted, it could take ages and then I wouldn't be able to play with it for a long time in the game. So this is way, way, way better. I think the other side of that as well is the skill tree, the perk tree, the passives. So here I'm a bit conflicted with the internet, because all I have read on Reddit and general community response over this launch period is that it's too expensive to respec. That's what people are saying. And there are all these screenshots of people respecing like their entire tree. And, oh, look, it costs more money than I have. And people are kind of freaking out about it. The thing is, with this game, they said in the release promo material that changing your build on the fly would be easier and respecking would be easier. I don't remember too clearly with the original game. They used to give you these orbs of regret, and you'd get like a few throughout the campaign, not many. It was incredibly difficult back then. What I can say to my own experience is it's nothing like these posts I've seen online. I respect countless times. You know, there's entire like clusters of buffs that you can get. I would dip into them and then remove them and then dip into them again and remove them again. Whole branches of the tree I would prune and then reorganize. Honestly, guys, I did that maybe 6 or 7 times in a very, very, very big way. And it was fine. I think one of the reasons why my experience is so different to what other people are saying is that apparently it gets more expensive the higher level you go. So where I was tweaking and customizing and learning things a lot when I started out, it was cheaper. But surely that's the same for everyone, right? Maybe it's this thing where some people get in, they just power level, they have no love for tweaking while they're in the campaign, they only care about it in the end game. So then they get to like a ridiculously high level, and now they realize, oh, they should have been experimenting already. I don't really know what that is. What I can say is I had a lot of fun, and for anyone who's not going to go too crazy, I think don't be scared away. Respecking in this is way better, and it's something I kind of need to do as well. 1, because I'm a noob, but 2, because the balance in some places can be a little rough. I mean, look, this is a huge complicated game, and I'm very impressed by how good the balance is for how many moving parts there are here. You know, there's 1,000 different terms and skill tags and ideas at play, but there are some acutely weird things I'll talk about in just a second. So that's it really for gameplay. The other thing I don't think about very much, but Path of Exile 1 didn't even have WASD controls, which I've been using the entire time in this game and fits like a glove. As I played, you know, the idea of an ARPG can be very simplistic just in terms of what you're actually executing. In terms of game action, you're basically just using WASD and clicking a bunch, right? Maybe even using the same skill over and over. Maybe you toggle in a second skill, a third skill. Again, versus PoE1, I think this is way better. The original game, I think it's because of the whole link system, how it used to be. I would supercharge one skill, really, and use that same skill over and over and over. In this game, I'm using maybe 5, 6, 7 all the time. Here's a curse to start the fight. Here's another kind of debuff that I might use. This will summon a certain thing. This will, you know, attack without costing me too much life or mana. This will attack and spawn something. I always had an array of things I was doing, so that was another huge improvement. But ultimately, you know, you're on this top-down view, you're just grinding through and mashing up mobs and running around. The moment-to-moment isn't necessarily that complex, so where these games thrive is by layering lots of other cool systems, by making the leveling as interesting as possible with these big skill trees, with lots of skills and gem interactions and stuff. And for that, I think this was also really good. Like, every day I sat down to play, and look, I've got, you know, daily 5-6 hour streams you guys can watch. Every single one of those, it felt like I kept being introduced to new stuff. And here's another new mechanic, and here's another new idea, and here's another fun new piece of loot. And it was always rewarding. It was always giving me new shit that I wanted to play with and try out. And, you know, that's the spirit of the genre. I think they nailed all of that. So, so very, very, very happy there. Just to round out the gameplay section, another kind of big topic, sort of tangential to it, where I'm sort of at odds with the rest of the community, I think, is the description of this game as like a Dark Souls ARPG. So I don't know if you guys have come across this. You know, I'm sort of making this video for people who are totally out of the loop. People keep describing Path of Exile 2 as much harder And I don't know whether, I mean, difficulty kind of is integral to the idea of a Souls-like, right? The PoE 2 is much, much, much harder than the original, and it's Souls-like. It will one-shot you constantly. You have to learn telegraphs and this, that, and the other thing. And I think when people often talk about it, they talk about it in kind of a negative light. Some people in a positive light, they say, oh, this is clearly much better. The other thing is that the Path of Exile 2 is a lot slower as well. They got rid of things that mean you sprint around the map or teleport around the map. I mean, there definitely is some still in there. I have a blink ability that allows me to TP that I got later into the campaign. I've seen a video of someone spamming Flicker Strike on Monk in the sequel, and it was also completely ridiculous. But the idea is that this one's a bit slower, and therefore this term keeps coming up, Dark Souls-like. So, for whatever it's worth, my experience of this game and the difficulty was nothing like that. And in fact, if you watch my first impressions, my day one impressions video that I did last week, I said much the same. I was expecting it to change as the game went along, but it really didn't. To me, the sequel, in terms of like pacing, in terms of how difficult it was, in terms of what I'm actually doing on screen, this is exactly how I remember the original game to be. Like, it's barely any different at all. And so I think there's a couple of and that's fine for me, and that's lots of fun. I think there's a couple of reasons for this. One is that while I did play a fair few campaigns of Path of Exile 1, I never looked up build guides. I never got deep into the end game. I always played it slow. I always listened to all the dialogue. I always cleared all the way around the maps. I took it at my own leisurely pace, whatever was fun for me. The joy of a game like this is to make my own build. The idea of going online and looking up some OP interaction or whatever kind of ruins it a bit. And even if I were to do that, because there were occasions I looked up things, they always required loads of special uniques and gems and things that I just didn't own, you know, so there'd be some league going on, so I would have started fresh from zero. I would have been leery about doing player trading or whatever, and so I couldn't do any of these kind of like crazy overpowered interactions. The other thing is, I guess I'm kind of out of touch with Path of Exile 1. I remembered kind of playing it fairly recently, but the truth is it's been about half a decade since my last campaign, and I guess there's a chance that, you know, if you came to Path of Exile 1 at any point in the last 5 years, and especially if you looked up build guides and stuff, good odds are that you came to a much more overpowered, power-crept game, where people just kind of expect that's the baseline speed now. I'm no stranger to the absolutely ridiculous videos online of just insane skill effects and people going vroom and just zooming through and destroying every single room in whatever the map they're in or whatever, and that's it, it's over. I'm no stranger to those videos. I kind of get the impression that people sort of started to think that was the game. Because, you know, that's going to be the majority of your hours of gameplay, right? And, you know, that's sort of what they should be balancing around. But I never had that experience in Path of Exile 1. Path of Exile 1 was, you know, kind of steady going for me. Maybe a little bit quicker than what I've just experienced over this week with the sequel. But here's the real kicker. In the original game, whenever I would get to a boss, because, you know, there were big story bosses, my experience was to die to it every now and then. You know, have a couple of wipes, 2 wipes, 3 wipes, 4 wipes, 5 wipes, then beat the boss. You know, I'm dying to the big telegraphs and animations, then I finally beat the boss, it feels really satisfying, I move on. Fast forward to this week, I've just played the sequel, and that's what happened in the bosses in this. You know, they have cool, fancy, fiery, and amazing animations. I wouldn't one-shot them necessarily, I'd die a few times, and then I'd move on. I mean, there's no difference, really. The final thing that could have made this feel very, very similar for me is, again, I'm kind of playing a Minion Mancer for my first build in this game, and a Minion Mancer sort of play style is very, you know, hands off, very just passive income kind of damage. I don't know, this idea of very precise clean dodges and specific burn phases and whatever that you might associate with a Souls game, and like lots of acute accuracy. Maybe that doesn't apply because of the build that I'm playing. You know, maybe I'll go back through on PoE 2 and I'll play a ranger or something melee. Apparently melee classes are really hard in this game right now. Maybe I'll play a melee class and I'll find a really, really, really huge difference. But for me, the two games felt very similar. Those are probably the reasons why, and, you know, I liked the pace. I thought it was cool. If the end game changes now and it's just, you know, much quicker, and like I'm not really looking at any telegraphs, I've already heard that there's basically no bosses at the end game, then yeah, that might kind of suck, and that might get kind of boring to me, honestly. So fingers crossed that doesn't happen. I'll be seeing in the next few streams over the next few days, so if you guys want to see how that goes, feel free to tune in and check it out with me. So, as much as I said there, I wiped on bosses, that's not unanimously true, and that kind of segues us nicely into the next thing I want to talk about, and that's balance, I alluded to a second ago. I do think that some of the balance is a bit off. This is very difficult for me to talk about, because all I have under my belt is one playthrough's worth of experience. All I can draw from as anecdotes are what I experienced as I played the game. And it might have just been, I ended up making a really, really, really strong build. I suspect that's not true, and I'll give you reasons why in a second. But maybe I made a really good build, and then therefore that's why things kind of got easy. But so one of the things I was really excited about with this was the cruel difficulty. So when the game finally releases, actually leaves early access, they're going to have 6 completely distinct acts to play. But for now, what they're doing is looping you back through the original 3 acts a second time in what they call cruel difficulty. Eventually, cruel difficulty is going to go away, but so maybe this doesn't really count for too much as a part of the review. But I like the idea of going back through cruel. I like the idea of seeing the same places, but with much bigger numbers, much different effects and things going on, and harder. I really wanted it to start hitting me hard. And unfortunately, I'll say, throughout the entire cruel playthrough, I struggled a bit on the Act 1 boss, but the further into it I got, the more stuff just started melting and blowing up. Basically, there was a moment where I finally started investing a little bit into defenses with some energy shield, and just none of the bosses really did anything. Maybe a random wipe here or there, but you know, and running around the maps and stuff, it felt like the game never sort of bumped up enough to really push back, and that's, I think, is a bit of a shame, because again, for me, with this genre, if I don't have little moments where things are suddenly really difficult, it feels pointless to keep going. You know, you're just getting bigger numbers for the sake of getting bigger numbers. There has to be like aspirational content. There have to be moments, and I like them even just there in the campaign, where suddenly I'm getting blown up. In my first impressions video, I mentioned that I left like that original outpost. I was on the beach at the very beginning, and suddenly I died, and I realized, oh god, okay, cool, I focus up. This isn't just spamming a button the whole time. There's a bit of meaning to it, and I wanted cruel to be that consistently. It wasn't. That was a bit of a disappointment. Hopefully that doesn't mean the same is going to happen for Act 4, 5, and 6. Obviously, I'll be blind in totally new areas there. There'll be big maps. That was what, and you know, new bosses entirely that I've got no idea what to expect. So hopefully that'll be a little something, but. Yeah, I think they should push cruel and those later acts a bit harder, but not in terms of maps. So I just mentioned maps being really big a second ago. I think that's one of the big failings of the game right now. The way that it's structured is when you start playing, when you explore a new area, it's kind of like a small, tight space, and you level really quickly in it, and you find all the unique content there really quickly, and then you move to the next, and it's constantly new things interesting you. Then in the second act, all of the maps are bigger, and you kind of don't feel it too much because they're kind of clever about the way that they slowly trickle them out. And, you know, the theme of the second area is a giant desert, which apparently, guys, is the same as how Diablo 2 did it. In fact, beat for beat, this is supposed to be very similar to Diablo 2. Anyway, you're in a desert, so they're bigger. But you can really feel it. When you get to Act 3, they make the maps even bigger. I mean, just huge, grueling slogs to get through that are just not fun. They're past the point of being fun. I think they're at least 33% too big, and that's just the halfway mark, right? When we get to Act 4, 5, and 6, if they keep expanding these things, I don't think I'm going to be having too much fun. It was so refreshing to get to Cruel, just because suddenly I was in the Act 1 region again, and all the maps were small again, and oh my god, when I finally got to Cruel, that first day in Cruel, the drops were just going crazy. I got like 6 uniques in one day. I got all this amazing, awesome stuff, and I'm sure a bit of luck is due to, that's down to a bit of luck. But also, it's just the pace of the content was so much better, and that was a stark moment for me. I realized, oh, the game had been getting a lot grindier, and I hope that doesn't continue. So the balance there feels a bit off. In terms of build craft, And difficulty as well, actually. Let's talk a little bit about Ascensions. So Ascensions are like the coolest thing to me about Path of Exile. They're basically Guild Wars 2 elite specializations, guys. And in fact, you know, I was doing a project on Final Fantasy 14, and I saw that this game was coming out. I watched a video about it, and they were talking about the Ascensions, and that's really what got me really excited to play it. That's why this whole stream series is going on. That's why you're watching this video right now, is because of their Ascension system, which they have all this beautiful art for and stuff. So I played a witch, and at a certain point, after doing a difficult dungeon, let's just call it, and this was really good that it was very difficult. This is one of those few moments where I got kicked in the teeth and enjoyed it sadistically. You get to ascend, so I get to take my witch, and I get to give it some really, really powerful, unique perks. What do I pick? The Infernalist or the Blood Mage? And when the game fully released, there's going to be a third one. In fact, there's going to be more base classes when the game comes out, and 3 Ascensions for all of them. I think it's something like this, 36 more to see or something. Just crazy, really cool. For years, I've been working in the background on like my dream idea of an MMO, and I've had like an Ascension style thing like this. I think it's so amazing. I think Elite Specs are amazing, cool stuff. So I got given my decision as a witch. You know, I'd really worked for it. I felt so rewarded. And basically what you can do, guys, is you can ascend 4 times in the game to get more and more points to become a stronger and stronger version of your elite specialization, so to speak. So I got my choice. My choice was the Infernalist or the Blood Mage. And even before I got to this moment, I was getting a lot of messages from you guys, the community, in the live chat, saying, be careful of Blood Mage. Now, this worried me a little bit because Blood Mage is what I really wanted to play. I have like an idea of a Blood Mage for my thing. I just love the idea of a Blood Mage. And I was thinking, I really want to give this a shot. But people were saying it was weak. The fundamental idea of a Blood Mage is that as you cast spells now, you will sacrifice life. So anything that costs you mana, you're going to spend that same amount of mana as health. So you're sacrificing life as you cast. But, you know, an Ascension is there to make you stronger. So I'm thinking, okay, cool. So it's going to be dicey. I'm going to need to invest more in health. I'm going to need to invest in health recovery in some way. But we'll get some massive cash out for it, right? There'll be a fun thing about it. So I'm really excited about Blood Mage, but people are warning me. The other choice, so I get to Ascending, I look at the other choice. The other choice, Infernalist, just looks bonkers. Like, Infernalist has so many amazing interactions, not just like power creep, but beautiful, hard worked on ideas within it. It has a thing that transforms you entirely into a demon. They have like demon form, and it gives you like this massive spell damage and stuff. They have like a minion line, and I was playing with minions. They had a minion line that gives you essentially a Hound of Balthazar. You know, there's permanent extra summon that doesn't cost you anything, and it takes health instead of you as it's doing its thing. And like as I moused over all the elements of Infernalist, it just looked like this beautiful thing. It's basically the Guild Wars 2 Hollowsmith. And then a bunch of other stuff too. Really amazing. Like, down to the art, the ideas, interesting mechanics. Meanwhile, over on Blood Mage, the thing I really wanted to try, it was maybe a 5th as exciting. All the buffs were just like straight stat tweaks. Very uninspired. So the art is good, and I think the broad ideas they went for with Blood Mage was also pretty cool. So if I was making a Blood Mage in an RPG with mechanics, as much focus on mechanics as this game has, you know, I would do similar things. It has like lifesteal, good idea. It has stuff about building health, good idea. It has stuff about bleed the condition, very good idea. So it like hits the major beats, but all of the perks are boring. And then it's got like some other weird lines that just don't fit at all. Like, oh, your curses are infinite, which sounds really fun, and I'm actually using. That's the one thing that I've gone into using now after the blood stuff seemed so weak. But doesn't really seem to fit with the theme. It feels like, I described it this way when I got there first. I'll describe it now a week later. It feels like they made the Infernalist ages ago as one of their first ones, and they had a lot of time, and, you know, they weren't crunched or whatever, and it feels like they made Blood Mage 3 months ago when the clock was ticking and they were out of time, and they just had to rush and get something rudimentary in there. So it was disappointing on those levels that there was such a huge difference in quality, and I feel like I've seen that in a lot of places in the game. Certain skills, the passive tree seems way more interesting with way cooler notables in like the top half than in the bottom half. It feels like it's very inconsistent, and maybe the idea with a game like this is, you know, they're planning on hammering it out every league or whatever. We are in early access after all, but it was a bit of a disappointment. So I had this choice. I pushed through with Blood Mage anyway. To be honest, guys, the fact that barely anyone was playing it. So Blood Mage is tied bottom for last on the leaderboards in terms of people actually playing it. Like, it is rock bottom. And I heard this, and I heard that there was no one around on it, so I picked it. Because, you know, it's extra fun to do something special, right? I can fix it. I can find the hidden meta. Something along those lines is what was going through my head. Well, I haven't fixed it. I haven't found a hidden meta. It just sucks. The worst thing about it that sucks is on Infernalist, I get to immediately make fun decisions about where I go in the tree. For Blood Mage, you are forced to spend your first 2 points, which is significant, on the same thing. Everyone has to do it. There is no choice. And what it does is it adds this thing that means you sacrifice health as you cast. And I'll tell you guys, early on, it was kind of fine. I was thinking, well, I can sort of handle this. And it's even sort of nice. It gives me a lot of extra health. It's another way of healing. It kind of is okay because I can overheal through the mechanic. But the further into the game I've got, the higher the mana costs have got. And the pricier my spell casting has got, and it's just become like a huge nuisance. It's just a pain in the ass, and there's like no reward anywhere for doing it. There's loads of other places in the game where you can start sacrificing life. You can sacrifice life on casting offerings. You can add this gem support called Life Tap, which will make anything sacrifice. What I think Blood Mage is missing is some kind of cash out on sacrifice, like immediately once you get into it, because all it did for me is it just added this. It's not like my mana costs are cheaper. It's not like I've swapped spending mana for blood. I've just added blood. I haven't discounted or anything. It's just, here you go, just spend your health as well. And with no way to pay off on it, it feels kind of rubbish. So pretty disappointed in my Ascension. However, as far as the review is concerned, for the overall idea of the Ascensions, I think it's brilliant. I think that they've got a lot more to come. It's everything that I love about Elite Specializations and more, really. Which just goes to show, actually, for the Guild Wars 2 fans out there. You know, Arenanet did a bit of an experiment with these mini X-Packs, right? They said, we're not going to do Elite Specs, but we will still do weapons, right? And I have to say, weapons haven't been that exciting to me in Guild Wars. And now I'm playing Path of Exile 2, where they're doing traits, not weapons, like the passives. And it is exciting to me. So it's kind of funny that, actually. I feel like Guild Wars, if they went the other way on a mini X-Pack, if they just did traits, like with Elite Specs, but the weapons weren't a part of it, I'd probably be really into it. I don't know. The PoE2 traits for the Ascensions are just cooler anyway, because they're not just in this strict structure of minor 3 mages, minor 3 mages, minor 3 mages. They're, you know, in these beautiful lines where they can do fun stuff, like Blood Mages have to take the first 2 before then it branches. Meanwhile, you know, Infernalists can go all over the place and do whatever. They can do fun stuff. So, yeah, I'm interested to see where they take it. The other thing about Ascensions as well is it's basically the thing I'm playing the game for right now. I've beaten the campaign, but I've only ascended twice. You can ascend 4 times. Each one is like doing a ridiculously difficult dungeon, and that's where my enthusiasm for the game is right now, because I can't do the dungeon. They're way too hard right now. They're way too hard. So, level up, get better gear, figure the build out better, and you know, there's some meaning to it. So that's like the next carrot for me. Ascensions are very cool, just need a little bit of work, and, you know, maybe I would have been much more glowing about this if I hadn't picked Blood Mage. But, you know, I went in with eyes wide open. I can't bitch too loudly here now. Our next big topic I really want to review here, reflect on, and again, I wasn't too into this. I think the game could use some work, is the user interface. I think it's pretty shit, guys. So, look, I'm wary of making this comment, because in truth, right, from a more casual perspective, the UI is brilliant. There's a lot to like about it. The playing Tetris-style minigame thing that is a hallmark of the franchise, I'm really into. The item UI itself, I think, is amazing. You know, it's just like with Path of Exile 1. There is such beautiful icon art going on here. Your health orb and mana orb, just everything about the UI in terms of style and presentation, I think is top tier. You're not going to find much better out there. That's not really what I'm complaining about. When I say I don't really like the user interface, what I'm saying is it's a complicated RPG, and there's a lot to learn, especially for an outsider like me, a noob like me. A a lot to sort of work through. And it's the UI's job to teach you how build interactions are working and how things are being modified and what's important. And it's very arcane in that way, and it's very, weak for that. Now, granted, this could be an issue that's exacerbated just for me due to the fact I'm a minion monster. But, like, if I am at a point where I've unlocked something new, I can support one of my minions in some way. Do I give it fire penetration? Do I give it a bit of extra fire damage? Do I give it a bit of extra physical damage? Or do I, buff it in some other generic way? I want to have some sort of feedback on how that might improve it, but quite often the tooltips completely let me down. And the tooltips for various skills are completely inconsistent about what they show. Like, sometimes I feel like I can't even see like what health my minions are, or what level, or what strength, or whatever that they're supposed to be. And I've had multiple frustrations with that, where it looks like sometimes the tooltips are set up beautifully, and others it's just kind of a bit of a mess. The new skill gem and socket system, as good as it is as well, doesn't have like basic things where you can collapse everything in the view that you might like to. Keybinds, you can only add like one keybind, not two keybinds. Search bars, there's nearly always a desire for me to just type into the search bar what I want to see, and you just can't really find it. The whole idea of identify and then salvage and then disenchant and then dump stuff in your stash feels a bit tedious to me and a bit weird. I don't really know where I sit with it. That's a part of where the UI starts meeting the gameplay, and I'm not really sure whether it actually feels fun after you've done it a few times. I guess I'll have to see what I think as I play further on, but I'm a bit iffy about certain things like that. I'm also iffy when it comes to storage, by the way, with the fact that you have to spend microtransaction points for basic functionality in your storage. Like, there's a currency tab, which is amazingly good, like game-changingly good for QOL and utility. But you have to, like, buy it with microtransaction points. And there's various other specialized tabs. Even as far as I can make out, please tell me if I'm wrong. Please tell me if I'm wrong. But as far as I can make out, even selling stuff, you need to buy, like, premium tabs to be able to, like, list things on the market. And that seems really odd to me. The market stuff in general, by the way, oh god, guys, it's the best. Like, in just 2 clicks from the official website, you can be put into a trade with someone from the other side of the planet, and they'll do the trade with you, no fuss, no messing around, and you're sorted. So actually, this is a game without a trading post, and it's direct player-to-player trading, and it is so seamless and smooth and brilliant. I can't believe it. In fact, since the last episode of the stream, I've been doing a lot of that today. I can't wait to rant about it on the next episode when I get into the end game. But yeah, so the trading is good. But this thing with the stash is just weird. You know, we made a Spud Club guild. Anyone's welcome to join the guild. We've already got a bunch of people who have joined, and it's been amazing, by the way, everyone, to see how many of you guys have come with me to this other game. And, you know, the guild gets its own stash. But again, you have to pay, like, the microtransaction points. And I don't know, it's odd. On the one hand, I think that's ridiculous. On the other hand, I paid to get into early access. Really, that's what I spent my £24 on or whatever. It wasn't like I spent an exorbitant amount of money. And when I logged in, I had a bunch of free points, so I just spent those on the stash stuff. So I've got to enjoy the luxuries. And to me, it's just a part of buying the game, I guess. That's how it went for me. There are going to be people out there who aren't in that situation. They spent their microtransaction points on, like, shiny skins and stuff. And maybe they have something to complain about, but at the same time, I'm a big believer that, you know, it's a consumer's job to inform themselves about what they're spending money on or whatever. And I don't, you know, you wanted the skin, you spent that money on the skin, so it feels a bit weird that there's a bit of a trap there, maybe? I don't know, something doesn't sit right with me, and I'll tell you this, coming from Guild Wars with Arenanet and the way that they do microtransactions and stuff, I know that they're not industry normals. They're far, far cheaper and far more forgiving and careful and ethical with their shop, frankly, than anyone else. I know that Arenanet are, like, on the other side of the spectrum, but you would never see this in Guild Wars, ever. I imagine the outrage from that community doing this kind of thing. You know, imagine they sold your guild banks and stuff on the shop. Just crazy. I suppose it's worth pointing out as well, you know, GGG are forward porting all of your microtransactions from the original game into the sequel. So, you know, that's nice of them, I guess. Maybe it was the fact that they're doing that meant that they were locked into the same practices in the second game, though. And that's all a bit clunky. Like, in this sequel, there's not many flasks, but you can buy a flask storage, which I did thinking it would be big quality of life, and it's really not. So, yeah. Back to the UI in general. I am impressed with their tooltip work. You know, I remember when Paradox added nested tooltips into Stellaris. You could mouse over a tooltip, tap T for tooltip, it would freeze it, and then you could mouse over and get more tooltips out of it, so they'll underline things. That's exactly what Path of Exile 2 is doing, and it's beautiful. It is very good. It's explained a lot to me, but still, many things are arcane. So I started this like UI section saying I'm a bit wary about making this comment, because the truth is, if you're not going too deep into it, I think it's fine. I'm just spoiled by other games, maybe, that have really robust stuff where I can instantly search for things and figure and log DPS and whatever a bit better. And the thing is with this game, it's kind of a bit about the maths, right? A bit. You know, if you're going to be build crafting, you want to know what your changes are doing to your build. You know, sometimes the game will estimate my DPS from doing something, and I'll ask chat about it, and they'll say, oh no, that's just a terrible approximation, ignore it. You know, what use is that to me? Sometimes they won't give me the information at all. Sometimes they will, and it's unreliable, apparently. So yeah. Last thing I really want to talk about here, guys, is the story. So I was curious about the story in this game, and as I have every time playing the original, I've sat down, I listened to all the NPCs, I exhausted them with all their topics. Path of Exile 1, I didn't really like the story very much. It was very grim the whole way. They throw a bunch of terms about their con world at you, places and people, and, you know, I wouldn't really know what was going on. I'd just run around, see the shiny pretty bosses, and that's it. I was in and out. There were also a lot of comments that they just winged it with the lore. They didn't even really have any good ideas, which blows my mind that you would ever treat the world like that. Like, what a cool opportunity it is to make a fictional setting for a video game. You'd go crazy with it, right? But they didn't really care, I guess, for Path of Exile 1. And that obviously makes it hard to care at any point in the future. But apparently they worked on it a bit harder here. Also, I think a lot of the storyline originally was told just through tooltips and mousing over things, which seemed a bit iffy. So I've beaten the game now, and I was hoping it would really grab me. Guys, it's pretty much the same. It's a little better. I feel like I understand Rayclast a little more now. Minor spoilers here, mostly because there's a bit of time travel going on in this, which helps me to understand like what societies were you know, active at what point in the timeline, and a little bit of what they think of each other. I did get into the story more and more as it went. Okay, Act 2 I found very boring. And all the information kept like bouncing off of me in one ear, out the other. Didn't really understand what tribe was doing what or why we were fighting. It just felt a bit whatever. The presentation was great. But Act 3 cheered me up again. See, I'm a big believer that having something eternally drab and always depressing is not actually good. Like, I'm a much bigger believer in a mostly happy, relaxed, chill, kind of pleasant vibe that gets very serious and grim and very, you know, 18 or whatever, but only sometimes. You know, have the gore, have the darkness, have the sadness, but it's got to be surrounded by majority, you know, fun, chill, nicer vibe adventuring. And I feel like the balance was completely off in Path of Exile 2. I think that same balance is off in this game as well. I'm not really that into it as a setting. What I will say, though, is in Act 3, I liked it a bit more, again, because there were some slightly heartier and nicer moments. The third act features the exploration and uncovering of an ancient civilization, and there are some, you know, explorer-type characters there, one of whom is very happy-go-lucky, very fortunate, doesn't really understand the danger she's in, bubbly sort of personality, and as soon as I was around that character, you know, I felt like more things fit. They have this great juxtaposition of her and this other guy that's seen nothing but a ton of death and sadness, and he's very, very careful, and she's not careful at all. And there I finally had a bit of balance. I felt like the story was working better. Who knows what they'll do with Act 4, 5, and 6. I'm into it just enough. There's a few cool characters in it that I really like as well. At least 3 very cool characters. But I think the delivery is just poor as well, guys. This thing of click an NPC, get a bunch of topics Morrowind style, and just listen to a voice actor speak. I don't know. I feel like there needs to be a bit more going on here. Yeah, you can mouse over items. I feel like because the camera never really gets in close, it's like the game just has these 2 very distinct phases. All action, all numbers, all fun, all go, and then just like this incredibly slow stalling moments while you're sitting there listening to the voice acting. It's another one of those games as well where I'd rather genuinely just read it. I don't really need to hear their voices out loud, and that's it. Very uneven as well, by the way. The audio balance feels quite amateurish and quite sloppy. Some characters you can very clearly hear, oh, this is just someone recording into their mic in a home studio, and other people it's really crisp, and there's no like consistent volume across them either. Sometimes someone will speak very loudly and someone else is speaking very quietly, and you know, that stuff's easy. Even I can do that. There's a character I've just met in the endgame hub who really gives off a very, very powerful impression of that, which is a bit unfortunate. The story kind of looks like it's not a very big funded part of this game. It's a bit of an afterthought. And maybe it is actually, because, you know, that's not what it's all about. But, you know, it's an opportunity to do and deliver something brilliantly. And I think they fell a little bit short for me. However, there are 3 more acts to go. And people in the chat have spoken very positively about it. They've said the Path of Exile 1 had a lot of humour. I don't know where that I haven't really seen much humour in Path of Exile 2 yet. People have said, like, with various leagues and stuff, certain characters and big bosses got introduced that were good lore moments. So maybe I'll get wrapped into that eventually. It would be nice. So there you have it. That's my 1 week review. Well, 1 week and 1 weekend review of Path of Exile 2. That's basically what we've experienced in the streams in a nutshell. I do encourage you guys to check the content out if you like. I'll try and do an omnibus of sorts. The footage you've seen in the background are various highlights. I've recorded locally the whole time. And I've got, you know, so different bosses and things. And you can see it does look very flashy and fancy. It's been really chill, fun vibes, brilliant second monitor content if you're looking for something podcast style. Just remember on YouTube that when you click my channel, there are 2 tabs. There's a video tab and a live tab. And all the stuff is in the live tab. There's also just a playlist. If you go to the playlist section at the top of this description, you should be able to find it just fine. So yeah, a pretty good game. What I'm now very interested in is endgame. This is the bit, guys, really. Usually, I stop playing Path of Exile 1. I find it boring. I don't really know what I'm doing with my build. I don't really know how to improve it further. I bounce off. I had a little bit look at the Atlas, which is just kind of this massive world map that you can explore. All the new perk trees and points and things at the end of the last episode I did. And it does look fascinating. So, and there's the extra ascensions to do and stuff. So, I currently am still very excited to try it out. Will it last? Will I get a whole other week out of the game? Or more, I guess, as some people do. I'm kind of umming and ahhing on maybe doing a hardcore character as well, just because I think that would be really fun to stream. I'm probably not good at enough of the game for that, though, really. I probably wouldn't even get out of Act 1 on something like that. But yeah, I'm still interested in the game, and if it can capture me even just a little bit more in the end game than the original did, I would consider it obviously and definitely much, much better. So you can feel free to watch along with that, guys, over the next couple of days. I will be streaming. I do have plans for lots of other projects. You saw my channel update a couple of months ago that I want to be doing too. So I don't know how long we'll be doing it for. Kind of all depends on how the streams go, how many people are watching, you know, and how much fun we're having. So feel free to check it out. Thanks very much, guys. Do I recommend Path of Exile 2? I've had a lot of people wandering in and asking me that. I would say, look, if you're even vaguely interested in the genre, if you liked elite specializations and you liked, you know, looking at the difference between Cavalier gear and Demolisher gear and Berserker gear and stuff like that in Guild Wars 2, if you like any of those elements of big RPGs, definitely try it out. There's a lot of crossover here, especially from Guild Wars 1 as well. You can really see Guild Wars 1 influence in this, in terms of like how you can tier skill gems up, like how in Guild Wars 1 you could tier attributes up. Even the numbers are kind of weirdly similar and stuff. So I think there is a lot of crossover, and you probably have some fun. I certainly have been, even though it can be a bit uneven. It's a bit clunky. It feels a bit early access, and I guess that's because it is early access, or it might be because, you know, PoE just feels a bit clunky sometimes. I guess we'll see. Let me know what you think in the comments. One of the main reasons I've made this video is because I want to see what you guys think about the game as well. If you disagree with anything I've said, or just talk to me about what your experience was, because especially if you didn't play a witch, right? Because I feel like the class you pick changes the game a lot. I would love, love, love to hear any anecdotes you guys have. Please, I'll be down in the comments or watching closely and responding. Thanks very much, guys. I'll see you next time. We'll be taking a look at the Atlas and forging on ahead. The next episode will be this evening. Take care, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.